Hello and welcome everyone to Mile High Mana. I know it's been some time. Last time we were here with you, it was myself and Bo Duran speaking about the Mountain Magic series and the end of that. But we have our return pilot here. We got Lee Wilson back finally, back in the saddle. Lee, what you been up to?
Basically everything but playing Magic. I've been on legit hiatus. I played one event. I went with you and Daniel to do a pre-release of Edge of Eternities. I played 3 rounds, dropped, and went home. That's literally the only Magic I've played in like 2 months. But yeah, it's good to be back, and I'm starting to get the itch again. I think I needed a real break.
Yeah, you definitely took quite a break. I mean, you had the MMS at the end of June, then you had that one pre-release, but other than that, you've played basically no Magic, right?
No, I really haven't. Haven't played any online. Haven't opened arena. Haven't played Moto. I've literally done zero, and I just kind of put it away. It was kind of interesting. Um, I started back into competitive Magic in 2012, and pretty shortly after that, figured out that at the time, at least, I thought Legacy was like by far the coolest constructed format. I did a little standard. I did a little modern. It didn't really catch me, and then I started down the legacy train, and basically since then I've like identified myself as a legacy Magic player. Like when I would go to big events or Grand Prix or whatever, that's how I would like kind of introduce myself. Like, oh yeah, I'm really a legacy player. And I was really actually just super disheartened when the BNR came in June and there were no changes to the format, and they even announced that they weren't going to make any changes until November. I really had kind of the rest of the trajectory for the year was to try to like really prepare for Eternal Weekend and really kind of try to brew and try to innovate and try to bring something, to a new format and have a chance to do it. And when no changes came, it really kind of struck me way more than I thought it ever would, which is really interesting. And I think after having not played for the last 6 or 8 weeks and thinking about it or whatever, like being a legacy player was like my identity. And I kind of felt like the Wizards, cabal of, people who manage the format, it just felt unmanaged to me. And I actually really struggled with it. And a thing I never thought, I'm not, me, I'm not like a super emotional human typically, but it really struck me. So anyway, that's kind of why I've been on hiatus. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it sucked all the wind out of this hobby for me for quite a while. One thing that I've sort of noticed recently, as my relationship with Magic has dramatically changed in the past couple months, and I can talk to that a little bit here later. But yeah, with the Legacy, it was pretty wild to me how underdeveloped the thoughts and opinions were that were provided to us by Wizards. And I don't want to sit here and rehash stuff we've already said in the podcast, but looking at like how it made me feel, it really sucked. Because to your point, like once I picked up Legacy, that was sort of my identity too. From working on the Storm team to doing a podcast to basically adopting every single Legacy deck into my collection. It was a huge part of my life and a huge part of this hobby. So yeah, it took the wind out of my sails too. But one thing I will say is I've sort of gotten over myself these past few weeks, and I have been back out in the legacy scene, I think 3 times in 3 weeks. And honestly, no one's really playing Reanimator locally. No one's really playing Oops All Spells locally. And whenever you're not playing either of those decks, Legacy is actually kind of awesome right now. So I want to give it its flowers, where we have these two plagues. But if you can dodge the plague, like it really is a great format once you knock the dust off.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've watched, a little bit of content this week, kind of coming back to kind of just look and see what's going on. I always kind of keep on the stuff that Andreas Eco Baronin does. I think he's just, by far the best legacy content creator out there. And, he has an unbridled enthusiasm for playing legacy, and, I'm glad that he does. But you're absolutely right. I think when you get outside of those two decks that really warp what the format is about, that they're totally awesome. And like I watched him play the blue red Core Steel Cutter deck, like Splashing Molten Collapse, which is a deck like right up my alley. It looked super fun to play. Games are super tight. You're playing on tight margins. That we had a new threat in Core Steel Cutter that really kind of adds a new dimension to the deck. I like really liked it. To your point, I think the new Sneak and Show piles are pretty fun. I think even some of the Eldrazi stuff, now that Mycospawn is gone, can be good. There's plenty of Cloud Post stuff going on. Outside of the two that you mentioned, I think there really is great diversity and gameplay. It's still Legacy, right? You still get like turn one Blood Moon or turn one Chalice or turn one Sneak and Show. Like that stuff always go on, but that's kind of always been the case. But I think that honestly made it even more difficult for me, Grant, in that like we're like so close, I feel like, to a format that could be really fun, but like they just like refuse to go there. Like they just refuse to like give us a format that's like fresh and viable to play a bunch of different strategies in. And I don't know. So anyway, long story short is like I kind of just got over myself as well. And I said, you know what? Like if this isn't going to be what it's about, like I'm not going to let that ruin my entire kind of relationship with Magic. I basically gave up on going to Eternal Weekend this year. Like I just don't want to participate in a format that like I'm not excited about. And I think like we only have really like one event a year in North America that is about Legacy. And I think if you don't kind of vote with your wallet and don't kind of vote with your feet, and like if you still continue to support the format even though Wizards doesn't, like I think that I don't feel good about that. You know what I mean? I feel like the only thing I can really do is like not participate and hope that next year, if it comes around, or if they change the format eventually, that if it comes back to a place where I enjoy it again, then off I go. I'm willing to re-engage and willing to do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to explore other formats. Like the one thing that I'm kind of excited about is I am qualified for the regional championship for the modern one here coming up. I'm going to go to Houston. I think it's this second week in October. So I'm back in the saddle and looking at modern and trying to kind of be excited about it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm glad you highlighted the consequences of this for, good or bad consequences. That doesn't matter nearly as much as the fact that this is sort of the fallout for you as a player with the past BNR. For me, we haven't talked too much in depth about this from my perspective, just because I know you've been busy, I've been super busy, but I've pretty much the past month or so taken a good hard look at like how I interact with this game and like what brings me joy playing Magic, and everything else I've basically thrown in a box and have been selling it. And that includes modern, Pioneer, standard cards. It includes legacy cards that I don't touch. I basically sold Eddie a bunch of swagged out painter cards, so he has like a lot of really sweet retro signed painter cards now. Sold a bunch of cards to other folks that are cool and signed, and all this other stuff. Because for me, I'm just taking the approach now where I'm going to play, the decks that I really enjoy, have that access for me. But I mean, Lee, it's going to be hard to get me back into, all the other formats, because I just don't want to sit here and it's almost like that capitalist protest that you were talking about by not going to Eternal Weekend. I don't want to keep buying new product. And I'm not going to, build decks and try and, create these standard and modern decks that rotate every other year or even every year at this point. Because that would just be me sort of supporting the, the fire design and the massive reprints of expensive cards and, just the total, frankly, money grab that Wizards has demonstrated. And, that also extends to Universes Beyond and things like that. But, personal feelings aside, my outcomes now are basically going to be Legacy, Pre-Modern, Dual Commander, and then I will occasionally play, Modern or Pioneer as needed for our team events. But, I initially went into this year with hopes and dreams of playing the RCQ season. I think I might have played one RCQ this whole year. The MMS was probably going to be the last time I play Modern voluntarily. When I mean voluntarily, the involuntary version is needing to be our Modern seat. But, I've gone through and I've sold quite a bit of a large amount of my collection. Nothing reserve list, nothing super high ticket, but, all the stuff that I know for a fact will get reprinted 1,000 times in the next 2 years.
I think that's totally reasonable. You've obviously had a ton of stuff going on in your life too. I'm sure having some extra cash in your pocket's always nice. I'm glad to see Eddie's getting out there blinging out his stuff. I feel like Eddie's a player who has always been a really amazing Magic player who's kind of always played the same deck over and over again. He pinged me yesterday, and we made out a deal for him to buy that Underground Sea that I won at the Duel for Duels. So he's going to have a set of Underground Seas, I think, and Eddie's going to sneak up on us and be the local Doomsday player or something. So I'm stoked for him. I think that's going to be sweet.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'd have never imagined Eddie buying Underground Seas, but more power to him. One of us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Plus, I'd rather keep it in the family anyway, right? So,
Exactly.
it's super
I
cool.
totally get
You know,
that.
I'm going to comment on standard too because I think this was part of my problem, and part of the reason I took like real hiatus, excuse me, is, for the last couple of runs of at least the last season for standard RCQs, I was playing the red mice deck and like, man, that deck was fun. It was super powerful. It was, had a bunch of strategic depth, even though people think it didn't. And I got to a point where I really, really enjoyed playing the standard RCQs, being able to play the different flavors of the red deck and doing that. And then honestly, I think they made the format fundamentally worse when they banned 7 cards, which is kind of amazing. Like you went from a format that was like kind of polarized, where like you could only really be on the extremes of the format, meaning like you had to be, really aggressive on the monstrous rage side of the format or the blue red side of the format, casting a million spells a turn, or you had to be on the far right side of the format, casting domain spells and temporary lockdown and stuff. Like there was no room at all to be in the middle, in any capacity, which is not a perfect format. You'd really rather have a format that at least has 3 or 4 different ways, and you kind of get some movement and rotation that that was certainly missing. But now they've come to the place where the VV Cauldron stuff just seems totally oppressive to me. They're everybody that's good has been playing the deck. Most of the top eights for the stuff on Moto that I see are literally like the last one I looked at. Literally all 4 of the top decks were VV Cauldron, and like yeah, maybe you can play some like kind of niche stuff that's like specifically good at that against that rather, but like it doesn't look like that's a viable strategy. So I said I put standard aside as well. Like this is standard RCQ season. I haven't played a single one yet, and it's because none of the decks look that interesting to me. So I'm just again I'm gonna make the same decision I'm gonna make with Legacy, in that I will re-engage with that format when it looks like it's a thing that looks enjoyable to me, or there's decks that I want to play. And if there's not, then I'm not gonna. So
Totally fair. And to clarify, you said that you're not going to Eternal Weekend. Are you locking that in? You're not doing it?
I don't think so. No, I'm not gonna go. It's also like kind of difficult because it's literally like 6 days before the RC as well. So like I would have to travel on back to back like weekends and then like try to prepare for both. And I just kind of was like, look, like if I'm not digging on Legacy right now and I don't really want to play Reanimator, and I don't think playing anything or the blue, I don't even love the blue black tempo deck either, and I think it's like kind of medium, honestly. Like I'm just not going to go because I don't think anything's going to fundamentally change between now and October. And I've just made the decision to not do anything that doesn't, spark joy. So no, I don't think I'm going to go.
Okay. Well, then we'll make the commitment that whenever we do get Legacy, like good Legacy again, we'll do the triple threat, because I'm ready to get to Japan and I'm ready to get out to Europe, and I would love to do the Triple Crown one year, but I definitely, if I'm gonna do it, I want to make sure Legacy's in good shape if I'm gonna do that.
No, 100%. I mean, last year, people on this podcast may not know, like I was really enjoying it last year, even though it was kind of a Reanimator sort of dominated meta. I thought playing with the frog was actually pretty fun. And so I really had a good time, and I played North America Eternal Weekend, and then our buddy Tommy pinged me. He's like, "Hey, you want to go to Prague and play?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's go!" So I did 2 last year, and it was fun. But it's just it's gonna have to be that again for me to want to engage.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, it was super cool, and I think you guys both did pretty well at. Well, no, I think Tommy did well in Europe, and you did well in North America, and I also did
Yeah.
well in North America, but I didn't do Europe. Um, so your primary focus then, it sounds like it's modern. Talk to me about modern, because if we're putting Legacy on the back burner and Standard on the back burner, if I know you as well as I think I know you, you putting 100% of your effort into one format's a terrifying thing. So talk to me about your modern prep for this RC.
Yeah, I think the two decks in the running for me right now are the blue Belcher deck that I got the remaining cards for, and also the Grixis Reanimator deck that's popped up lately, which is basically a Psychic Frog, Emperor of Bones, Archon, Persist type of deck. And I have always kind of had a soft spot for playing with Faithless Looting. I have always really enjoyed playing with Psychic Frog. And right now, my heart says that I probably will play the Grixis Reanimator deck if, nothing drastically changes. I mean, I think the only thing that would get me off of doing that is if it just continues to put up like really, really amazing results for the next 6 weeks, and then literally everyone's going to show up to the RC with 5 pieces or 6 pieces of graveyard hate in their sideboard. I don't really want to like walk right into that. I would probably pivot back to the Belcher deck, but it's going to be one of those two decks. I'm going to play a combo deck of some kind that's doing a really powerful proactive thing. I'm going to try to get my opponent dead as quickly as possible with, some sort of interaction, whether it's, kind of Thoughtseize or Spell Pierce stuff on the Grixis side, or, the Disrupting Shoal, Force of Negation, Flare of Denial stuff on the Belcher side. Like, I'm done playing fair in Modern. I tried to play kind of mid-rangey, control-y piles in Modern for a long time, and I think that's just a fundamentally flawed strategy. Modern is just simply too diverse, too wide. There's too many different types of strategies that there's just no way you can line up all the right answers. And even if you do, it never feels like super powerful. Like to me, the current Blink deck, the Esper kind of Blink deck, like is a really good deck. And like it definitely can play the control role really well, but like man, you're really eking it out, and it doesn't ever feel like you do anything just totally completely busted, and it's just not the position I want to be in. So I'm going to be playing a combo deck of some kind and try to murder my opponent. And I'm pretty excited about it actually.
Man, you're starting to sound like me. What the fuck happened?
Well, I learned my lesson, man. I've never had any success in Modern, and I just think I had the wrong I had the wrong attitude about it. Like it's so crazy to me, like how different of a format it is than Legacy. Like they're just total opposites in that Legacy forever had all the best answers, right? You had Force of Will, you had Daze, you had Brainstorm to find the answers, you had Wasteland. Like the answers were more efficient than the threats in that format, and including Plow and everything else. Modern is the opposite. There's no threat as efficient as Ocelot Pride, Ragavan, God of Souls stuff. There's no answer as efficient as Amulet. There's no answer as efficient as, any of these other busted decks that exist in Modern. So you just need to pick one, get in your lane, and, hope you roll good, hope you win some die rolls, and, just murder people. Like you can't try to stop what people are doing. It's just, you're just going to fail at that if you try. So I'm a combo gamer, Grant. What can I tell you?
Wow. I can't believe WotC finally pushed you to the dark side, but you're basically living in the world that I've lived in for the past 5 years. Is how can I get my opponent dead as fast as possible with the least amount of mana while being able to beat as much as resistance as I can. So it's fun. I kind of like Lee in his combo era. It's like you're entering your emo phase.
Yeah, maybe. And I will say, I actually think the Grixis Reanimator deck is really quite good. And it's funny because we all tried to build this deck when they unbanned looting. I think Daniel was talking about that in the Discord earlier about like, oh, we tried to build this deck and it never really worked and this and that, whatever. And I went back and like looked at them, and all the decks that we built at the time were full of Force of Negation and the actual card counter spell in 4 copies, and like it was this kind of weird amalgamation of try to be control-y, try to be a Tameo deck, but like also have this like juke combo thing, and like that just was like the wrong answer. Because I mean, I think everyone's finally figured out when like the best deck in the format, or at least by far the most played deck in the format, is trying to go 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop on the first 2 turns of the game. Like the card counterspell looks pretty stupid. So I think just getting all the bad cards out of the deck, and just like literally the whole deck is just 1 mana spells, looting, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, whatever. 2 mana things that win the game. Emperor of Bones, which, by the way, Emperor of Bones is unbelievable in this deck. Like, hasting an Archon is just, like, totally insane. And, Psychic Frog needs no introduction. And, like, that's it. We finally got the curve low enough that you could kind of compete here. And I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but, like, that Archon card is messed up. And, like, I really like making it trigger. So I'm going to try to do that, I think.
I think it's a good plan, and it sounds really clean to me. Plus, you're in effectively the 3 best colors in Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no forest in there, but I have to be objective when I speak about this. So, I like it. I think that's a good plan. I'm happy to help you test as much as you feel like you need, hop online, give thoughts and opinions. So, and it also seems like pretty up your alley. As far as combo decks are concerned, like, you're basically just playing the modern equivalent of the legacy deck that we've been playing for 2 years.
Yep. But you get to play with Frog, which is just way more fun. Like, I don't know how you feel about it, but, like, they kind of, like, killed my joy for the Reanimator deck when they took the Frog away, because, like, it didn't give you a good plan B. You didn't have a good plan B anymore. It was just like, you murder them with Entomb Reanimate, or, like, you die, kind of. And, like, Tameo is like, yeah, it's fine, okay, whatever. But, like, man, the games where you, like, scrapped it out with Frog, I always thought were the most fun. So I'm stoked to do it again in Modern. I think it's going to be cool.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, good deal. So Modern is on your radar. Anything else, or is it just going to be a strictly Modern focus up until the RC's complete?
I think I'm just going to play only Modern. It's actually not that far. Like, this week I have, I'm coming back into town. I've got a couple things to do with family, and then, you're getting married. We're having a big party and stuff. So I'm not going to play probably hardly at all through the rest of August. I just have too much stuff in my personal life. And then I only have maybe 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks at most, September and the first week of October. So I'm just going to heads down, try to get a league in, a couple leagues in a week probably, and just focus on that. And then we'll see what happens after that. Maybe I'll get crazy and play Dual Commander or something after that. I'm not sure what's going to happen after that.
Dual Commander's in a really good spot too. I've been having a blast. I played the Dual Commander monthly this past weekend. Went 3-1. Before that, I played a Dual Commander local, beat 3 of the top decks. I went 3-0. By top decks, I mean Cloud, VV, and Deadpool. And there's a couple other ones too, like Aragorn and Atraxa, and some other things. But Dual Commander is just very cool. I could sit here and probably talk about that for quite a bit. But Bo, who was actually the guest on our last episode, has really launched Manifest Dread, which is his Dual Commander sort of content creation platform. So it's a podcast, but it's also on YouTube, and there's a ton of gameplay, there's deck guides, so go check that out. I think that's a really great resource, and Bo's a fantastic player. But yeah, I mean, Lee, if you got into Dual Commander, I think if we stuck the right deck in your hands, like, you would actually really, really, really enjoy the format.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I think I have all the cards just in the binders to build Aragorn and Vivi, so it's not like a card availability problem. It's just I haven't paid attention to it and focused on it. Like, I always much prefer to play the actual competitive formats that have events and regionals and all this stuff to go to, and Dual Commander has always been much more of a kind of a purely casual format, at least from my perspective, kind of similar to Legacy. But yeah, if Legacy is not going to be around for me in this year, and then yeah, I'll need some sort of outlet for sure, right? I'll have my binge on Modern, and right now it looks to me like Dual Commander is really my only alternative. So I'm down, and I honestly, I hear nothing but good things. You guys rave about it. People really seem to enjoy it. So I'll figure out how to shuffle that many cards. It's totally doable.
And you know what? I think in maybe 20 years from now, Dual Commander will be a Pro Tour format, because Wizards will find a way to monetize Commander into the Pro Tour.
I mean, I don't know why the hell it would take them 20 years. I mean, it seems like a friggin' no-brainer to do it next year. I mean, if I was them, I would absolutely shake up the Pro Tour and do some stuff that's new and interesting. So, actually, speaking of the Pro Tour, you reminded me The other thing that I'm kind of like holding my breath for is I think the Pro Tour is coming up here in September and it's going to be modern. So that should be kind of fun in that, the pros are going to go in there and tinker with modern, and, there may be some innovations and stuff that kind of, move the format a little bit right ahead of the RC. So I think that's, to me, that's the most exciting thing up on the horizon. I don't know if I think it's something like the third week in September, if my memory serves, although I haven't looked that up.
Yeah, I mean, I always love the modern PTs. Like, I do like modern, and I did keep a couple modern decks if I have to fall back on. They're not very good, but they bring joy to my life. Um, but yeah, the modern PTs are always fun to watch. It's like, how do I give the best players the best cards and then see what they can do with them? It's always so much fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I think it'll be good. It's kind of going to be a weird Pro Tour, I think, because the draft format's going to be Edge of Eternities, which has been out for months, but like I don't know. I never really care about the draft portion of the PTs anyway. Like, I don't play a lot of limited, so I have a hard time following it. But I'm with you. Like, I think when it gets down to it, the very like definitely day two of the modern Pro Tour when you have those 5 rounds of constructed and all the top 8 stuff. Like, to me, that's some of the best Magic we've had on the Pro Tour stage. And there's such a greater depth of decision making, I think, because the cards are so powerful and the games are so condensed compared to kind of some of the standard Pro Tours that we've had of late, where, they become a little rock, paper, scissorsy a lot of the times. Modern is just a wild, crazy format. And I mean, last time, what was it? Was it Jake Beardsley won the last Modern Pro Tour with the Scam deck? Is that the last one?
I thought Simon won it with Nadu.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So it was
That
the
was the
Nautics
controversial Pro Tour. That was Pro Tour MH3 where Bart Von Eaton or whatever got banned in round 10 after beating Javier. And then we had the infamous one ring miss with Sun Cleanser when Simon and Javier played in quarterfinals. That was a whole mess of a Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. I erased Nadu MH3 from my mind, but like it all just flooded back when you said all that stuff. So yeah. But yeah, even that one was, whatever. Obviously Nadu was a totally ridiculous card in the modern format, but the one before that I really enjoyed, the Scam versus the Tron ring deck that Javier, put together, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be fun. And I don't know. I mean, I looked at the matchup matrix for modern for the last, I don't know, 60 days or whatever, just earlier today, and like there is a huge volume. There's so many decks in the thing that are like 3 and 4% meta share decks. Like, it's just, this is what modern should be, like super broad. You get paired into your opponent, you have literally no idea what they're going to be doing, and I think that's going to be cool, And I really hope that the modern format isn't like solved in air quotes, and like I just don't think it is. I was having this discussion with Joe the other day about, like, I don't think that the modern Pro Tour metagame is going to look like the current MTG Goldfish front page. Like, I just don't think that it is. I think there's stuff to be found. I think this Grixis Reanimator deck that literally came out of nowhere is proof that there's still a lot of exploration to do in the format. And I think when the pro teams get together and really put their heads into modern, that they're going to come up with some really interesting stuff. And I think we're going to have even more focus on constructed modern strategies and trying to break it than you even would normally, because they really don't need to prep for limited. The limited format's going to have been out for months and months. So like there really is nothing to do but try to break modern. So I think it's going to be friggin' awesome. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, I also wouldn't sleep on limited too hard, because when we have like a really well developed limited format going into a PT, for folks like me and Daniel who really like limited, you see a lot of really deep cuts where like there are diamonds in the rough that people find, or interactions where it's just like this card that was limited resources called it a C minus a month ago. Oh yeah, so and so just went 3-0 with 4 copies of that card because they got so many of them. Blah 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 blah. There's a lot of wood to chop in like every limited environment. We just feel like they're tapped out after 3 months because that's all we get them for at this point.
Yeah, that might be true, but my experience, again, I've never played a pro tour or been part of a testing house, but I do read all the post tournament reports, and I do really pay attention to kind of like what comes out of the pro tours because I think they're pretty special events, honestly, in the year of Magic. And honestly, I wish we had more, but most of the people that I talk to say, "Hey, I spend 70% of my time or greater on limited in PT prep because A, it's the first rounds of the tournament, so it's like the most important ones to your breakers. And B, a lot of times the Pro Tour takes place literally like 2 weeks after the set's release. So like they have to basically cram every time because they've never had any reps with the stuff. So like they just really, really need to play. I mean, this is just a fundamentally different thing. They're going to have like 8 or 10 weeks. So anyway, it should be fun to watch. And yeah, I'll just do what I always do. Friggin' root for Javier. That's like, that's on brand.
It's a good horse to have for sure if you're ever betting.
Yeah.
And I think too, I'll rattle off a few names that I know are playing in this PT that are local and close to us. We got Casey Miller, Kobe Keller, Paul Green, who's in San Diego now, but we still claim him over here in Denver. Sam Party, Matt Nass, and I don't think this will be a Hall of Fame PT because I think most of the Hall of Famers used their invites on the last one. Because we had like Gab, I think we had LSV, Bob Maher, Paulo Vitor Rosa, Pat Chapin was in the last PT. So I think this one will be a lot of just like current cycled Pro Tour players.
Yeah, could be. Speaking of Patrick Chapin, I wanted to give a shout out to the Unsleeved podcast, which is the Patreon only podcast that used to run off of the Resleevables channel. Obviously, Cedric Phillips had to quit that and moved to Seattle because he took I think he's the manager of play design now at Wizards of the Coast, and then Patrick Chapin came in to take his spot. But the very last episode, I think it's 111 of the Unsleeved podcast that you have to be a Patreon member to listen to, was an absolutely amazing banger episode where Patrick, well, the two Patricks, I guess, like talk about the standard bands, talk about kind of where the formats are with Vivi and Cauldron, and just like talk about from a game designer perspective, like how you navigate yourself into a format where a single deck is like 50% of the metagame. And then at the very end, like Chapin goes down this rabbit hole where like he compares Magic the Gathering formats to like the beauty of Street Fighter 2 and like the balance between the characters and how they manage it and whatever. Anyway, it was just an awesome episode. So if nobody's listened to that stuff before, I highly recommend it. I don't know, Grant, if you were ever part of that Unsleep podcast stuff, but if you haven't listened to it, you really should. It's a great episode.
Yeah, I was actually subscribed for quite a while. I unsubscribed for a couple of particular reasons that I didn't totally love about the podcast that I won't super make public here. But in general, I think that podcast is really awesome. It's really entertaining, and it's cool to like kind of have an up close front row seat to folks like Cedric Phillips, Patrick Chapin, and Patrick Sullivan. They're all obviously like lifers and they know their stuff, and they've all played the Pro Tour. Pat Chapin, I think, has won a Pro Tour or two. I think he's gotten top 4 at Worlds a handful of times. Like clearly just like an oracle of information. So I have no doubt that that's an entertaining episode, and maybe I'll even subscribe again just to listen to it. But
yeah, it's the best one in a long time. So
cool. Well, can I talk about some nerd stuff now?
The stage is yours.
Cool. So what I'm really excited for coming up is YetiCon. Lee, are you tracking YetiCon?
I talked to our buddy Joel about it a little bit, but it's not really on my radar. So why don't you kind of explain it?
So YetiCon, fortunately, it's one of those like kind of nationwide events, but it's in Denver every year. It's like right off Santa Fe, and it's basically just going to be a weekend of pre-modern, old school, and then like old school draft. So Friday is a pre-modern main event, which is it's effectively like a pre-modern Eternal weekend, or I guess LobsterCon's more of a pre-modern Eternal weekend, but this would be like a pre-modern RC or RCQ sort of caliber. It should be like somewhere between 64 players to, I don't know. It's probably going to be around 64 players. So hard for me to scale according to some of the WotC supported events that we have. So that's Friday. Also Friday, they're doing Tempest Draft and Ice Age Draft, I believe. They're also going to have a couple of artists on site all weekend. And then Saturday is an old school main event. So, and the cool thing is about this old school event, which I won't be playing in because it capped before I could sign up, but they've eroded Mountain Yeti to be a 3/4. So, like, the only way you can really kill it is through combat or terror because you can't plow it, it's pro white, and you can't bolt it because it's a 3/4. So, it's just like small stuff like that that's really starting to excite me. And, I've been slowly preparing for YetiCon as it stands today. And yeah, before I guess I go into my prep, what do you think about YetiCon?
I mean, it sounds fun. I'm glad that, that kind of event is local and that people are like stoked about it, but I'm kind of curious, like, are you playing a Yeti deck or are you going to like, play a good blue deck? Like where's your head at?
Oh, I'm only going to be playing pre-modern because I couldn't get the old school spot. I was just giving the overview there on
Okay.
what they were doing for old school, just because I thought it was cool. Pre-modern, I'm playing elves. Of course, I'm playing elves, Lee. That's all I know
Yeah,
how to do.
okay. Yeah, that I knew. If it had those pretty beautiful basic forests that you play, then like, yeah, you're in.
Yeah, and I guess spoiler alert: I bought 14 more beta Chris Rush signed basics. So I splurged on that, and I got them in today. Actually, I sleeved them up, and they just look drop dead gorgeous as far as much as a basic land could. So super excited on those, but yeah, I'm toying between a few different elves lists because you can build the deck about 100 different ways. There's a red splash for anger and squee and things like that. There's an additional red splash for like a cradle control stompier version of the deck, which I've been considering just because of all the board wipes. So you're playing more Masticores, you're playing like Birds of Paradise, Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossoms, so that you don't get board wiped nearly as easily. And then you usually finish the game with like a Kesa plus Sky Shroud Poacher or a Deranged Hermit. And so that's one version. And then the other version is kind of like your Turbo Elves that you can splash like cards like Tangle Wire and Rishadenport in, which is, the late Jens Slay Jaeger, who got second place at LobsterCon and actually passed away about 2 months ago now. He pioneered the Tangle Wire Rishadenport list. So I've been testing all sorts of things, and there's been a new deck that's hit the pre-modern scene. Hold on to your seat, Lee. It's called Quiet Speculation Oath, and that deck absolutely destroys traditional elves. It's kind of horrifying. I probably played 20-something games against Joel. I think I took 2 or 3. It's a really rough matchup, so I'm sort of trying to sort that out. And for the listener, Quiet Speculation is it's 1 in a blue, and you grab 3 cards of flashback from your main deck and put them into the graveyard. So what this basically will do is you get some combination of Volcanic Spray, Ray of Revelation, Call of the Herd, Deep Analysis. There's a couple other flashback targets, but the 2 big ones are Volcanic Spray and Ray of Revelation. And really what it does is it just destroys elves. Volcanic Spray is a 1 damage board wipe, and then Ray of Revelation just says destroy survival of the fittest. So that was a tough one in testing. And I think the Cradle Control version of the deck holds up a lot better to that. But even when you're able to sort of dodge all of their hate, they're still dropping 15/15 Terravores into play. So it might look like something Cradle Control, splashing Swords to Plowshares, and Armageddon for me is kind of where I'm leaning. But I've been having really fun, a really good time, like sort of prepping and planning around the process here. So wanted to share that with the listener.
I mean, that's a pretty interesting deck. So it's an Oath of Druids win con. What are they flopping into play?
Terravore. You tracking Terravore?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. Remind me.
It's an XX. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands in the graveyard, and it has trample. So Oath, you play 4 Terravore, and that's the only creatures that are in the deck. So when you trigger Oath, you mill over like 10 lands to get your Terravore, and then you can cast Armageddon to put another 8 lands into the bin, and because it counts both players' lands, and then you just turn that shit sideways. And it has trample, so I can't sit there and Wirewood loop by just blocking and bouncing an elf.
I mean, that deck seems really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool, and it's really good. Frankly, a lot of the Terravore Oath pilots have been really in the lab this year, and they came up with this Quiet Speculation deck, which is I think is like it's probably going to be the deck to beat going into this YetiCon. And it's just so many things to answer at once because like even if you don't die to Volcanic Spray, it usually means you're playing a bunch of creatures out, which means they're going to be oathing in Terravores, and if you Swords to Plowshares their Terravore, that just means that they still have no creatures and you have creatures, so they get another Terravore. It's pretty hard to beat. But that's been sort of my problem to solve as of late, and I have about another month and a half or so to do it.
Man, I may like. I wonder how much money it is. Is there anything in that deck that's like ludicrously expensive?
Um, no,
I
it's
didn't
not much
think
in
so.
pre-modern that's ludicrously expensive.
Yeah, I may put that together. That's like honestly the first pre-modern deck that I've heard of that like really kind of like tickles my brain and like would be kind of fun. And I don't really play vintage, so it kind of be a fun place to play Oath of Druids. And I saw somebody had the other day in the mystery booster. They made like a future sight framed Oath of Druids, so I may get a playset and put that together if it's like not too much money.
Yeah, Joel was rocking those when we were testing the other day, and they look sweet. I mean, I love the future sight frames, and but the whole deck. I mean, they're all retro cards too. So if you wanted the muddy retro gross versions of everything, you could do that too. Um, the one real weakness of the deck is its mana base. Actually, it is a Mox Diamond deck. Now that I'm thinking about it, so that's going to be your expensive piece.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like borrow those from Joss or something. But yeah, okay. Well, I can figure that out.
Yeah, so it's a sweet deck. It's been kind of the bane of my testing. Then there's a couple other decks too to be aware of for me, like Replenish, Dreadnought, those sorts of decks. But I'm excited to be playing the things that I think are really good. I think Elves is the best thing that I could be playing, and it is one of the best decks in pre-modern by, it is a tier one deck solidly. Survival of the Fittest plus Gaia's Cradle. I mean, could you name a better duo, Lee?
No, not really. And when I played, I just played a little bit. Like we were goofing around in the store, and I played a little bit, and I've like watched like a little bit of content, and like it seemed to me like survival was like the most powerful thing to be doing. So, it doesn't surprise me that that's what you've been doing because like that's just such an amazing engine, and yeah, the versatility that gives you from like what you can do from a turn to turn basis is just amazing. So I totally get why you like it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I will also not be attending Eternal Weekend. I will be at a friend's wedding that weekend back in my home state of Virginia, pretty close to the college that I went to. So it'll be exciting to go catch up with any folks still living around there, and going to my buddy's wedding, obviously. But I have YetiCon, and I basically have whenever the MMS starts up again. So I think that there will be a pretty heavy emphasis on Dual Commander for the next MMS season, just given how much steam that it's caught locally. And I think that, like, obviously Ian is a huge dual commander player, and like that's all he plays at this point. So if you're planning on playing the MMS this year, I would go ahead and start getting some. And this is for the listener too. Just start getting some ideas of what you'd play if dual commander is on the schedule a few times in the 12 events that we get.
Yeah, cool. Anything else on your mind here? I think it's been nice to be back in the studio to chat. Like this is pretty fun. I've kind of missed it.
Yeah, I mean, my legacy updates. I've been playing a lot of Nadu Elves. I've been playing the Is It Cutter deck. I've been playing Infect. I went back and played regular elves, like Glimpse elves, for a little bit. I'm just having fun with all the decks that I really enjoy. I got a playset of Signed Dazes recently, so playing those has been a joy. I've been having a lot of fun with all the decks that I'm playing across those three formats that I'm really focusing on. That being Legacy, Dual Commander, and Pre-Modern.
Nice.
Anything else you want to chat about?
No, that's it, man. I mean, I just put my head back into Magic after weeks off, so I don't really have a whole lot. But as I kind of do my preparation for the RC, I'm sure we'll check in, and I'll probably do some Wednesday night Legacy gaming at DCG, or maybe go to Mythic and play some Modern, the next couple of weeks. So maybe we can get out and jam a little bit.
Yeah, I should be at Mythic tomorrow night for Legacy, so I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Cool.
Well, this has been fun, dude, and appreciate you, kind of pinging me to get back on it. And yeah, we'll, see everybody around town now that I'm back in the saddle.
Cool. Appreciate it, Lee. We'll try and do another one here in a week or two just to see. We'll check back in with you after my wedding, and we'll see what your RC prep is looking like then.
Awesome. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.